It's January 10th, so it's Wednesday, and it is my last week of freedom before I start my new job on Tuesday. Hi, so my name is Sydney, and I'm a writer, and if you don't know, I was on a gap year with my husband for the last year and a half. So from about June 2022 to November 2023. And we went to, I think, 8 countries during that time, doing a bit of slow traveling, spending like anywhere from a couple of weeks to like a month or more in different countries. We did a road trip up through Maine, Bar Harbor, and Canada, the Maritimes particularly. We spent 2 months in Ireland and the UK, and Iceland as well. We went to Finland for a week, just above the Arctic Circle. I went to Savannah to see my friend for a weekend, and then my husband and I went to Singapore for 2 weeks and then Japan for 6 weeks. And then we came back, had a bit of a chill summer, hanging out with family and that kind of thing. And then I did a creative retreat in the fall where we went to Edinburgh, and then I went to London and did a writing retreat in France. And then came back, applied to some jobs, got one, 100% remote, baby. That was the main thing that I wanted. I'm going to be editing documents for a company, a small company. And I start on Monday. Not Monday. I start on Tuesday, January 16th, because Monday is a holiday, Martin Luther King's Day. Oh, by the way, Henry's over here. Gosh, she's so cute. Yeah, I'm talking about you. I love you, Henry. Go back to what you were doing. Don't mind me. 2023 was a fantastic year. 2023, I want to start off by saying I did the 30-day Yoga with Adriene challenge in January, but I managed to do it successfully last year. And I think that was a good way to start off the year for me because it sort of instilled in me this confidence that I can finish what I start, which is exactly what I needed to do, especially when the task is hard. So like showing up every day to do yoga, obviously the hardest part is showing up. And the same is true with writing. So all in all, in 2023, I wrote 2 complete drafts of novels, 2 different novel stories, and then proceeded to plan and start a 3rd one. I have videos of all these different travels. I have everything that I'm talking about, I have videos of, so you're welcome to go back and just watch through. With Stormcloud and Hotel Story, you get to see the progression of my working on these stories all the way through to the end. So yeah, I went to the writing conference. That was a fantastic experience. Learned a lot, met a lot of cool people. And then I went down to the writing retreat in France for a week, where I also met a lot of cool people and dove into NaNoWriMo. I'm never usually drafting in November. So I was really just trying to force progress on Project Whisper. I pushed and pushed and pushed, was making some progress. I revised and re-outlined and reordered my series of plot events over and over and over. So after I left France, I came home. And then we're on the run up to Thanksgiving. I'm applying the jobs. I'm decompressing from the trip and also knowing that that was really my last big trip of the gap year. Come here, my love. Come here, my love. Come here, sweetie. He's not going to let me hold him for very long. When I got home, I was still pushing and pushing and still very hopeful. So I did re-outline the story again, and I was actually very happy with the new order of events. Decided, I think around the end of November, I figured out, okay, my story now has 36 chapters. There are 31 days in December. Maybe I can more or less do a chapter a day. So I laid out like a schedule. And I pushed through the first, I don't remember exactly, 12 to 14 chapters, something like that. I think we were maybe halfway through December before I was just like, hey, I kind of need to just take a break. The only thing really at that point that was motivating me to keep writing was the fact that I wanted to say that I'd written 3 novels in a year. And I think it was around the end of December where I was sort of feeling the call of Stormcloud again. Now, I haven't looked at Stormcloud since the end of May. After I put down Whisper, I think I gave it a few days, maybe not even a week, before I picked up Stormcloud and just started reading through it, not making any changes to it, but taking notes. And also with applying to this job, I was actually deciding between 2 jobs over Christmas, 2 very different jobs, 2 jobs that paid very differently. Over the holiday season, I basically drove myself crazy trying to decide between the 2. But ultimately, I ended up picking the editing job, which I think I'm happy with, but I do think it's going to be very interesting because I've never done that as a job before. I've always wanted to, but we'll see. It's been a time of change, let's just say that. So now we're starting the new year. My mind has been on the new job and the application process and the onboarding. I had a bit of a stressful interview situation because I received the offer of one job when I still was interviewing for the other job that I was like wanting more, the editing job. And so I asked the offer people, like, can I have an extension on this deadline? Because they wanted me to answer by December 26th, which is the day after Christmas. And the company wasn't even going to be open on that day. So I was like, can I just have an extension till January 2nd? And they were like, fine, that's cool. And then I continued interviewing for the other people, and I told them, like, look, I have this other offer on the table, and I have until January 2nd to decide. So if you want me, we gotta, So, like, in a couple of days' time, no, in 2 days' time, I interviewed twice with two different people in the company, one of them being the CEO of the company. It's a very small company. And I did an editing test, like a very last minute sudden, wasn't expecting it kind of editing test. And then they came back and they're like, oh yeah, you got the job. Like, oh, like we want to bring you on. And it was very much a confidence booster, because even though I like editing, I wasn't sure that I was actually good at it. It's like writing, like I like it, but am I actually good at it? Especially in regards to getting paid for it, to be hired by someone to do it. Now that the stress of applying and onboarding for this job has sort of died down, and also now that it's my last few days of freedom before I start my job next week, and also because I really do have some long-term goals for this year. Like I learned so much about writing, about finishing what I start, about seeing a project through even when it's difficult. I learned that I don't, like, even if I have an attention span of just 3 weeks to work on a project, I can push through that. Look at his little face. Look at his little face. He's so beautiful. This little old man. I love you, Henry. Mwah. He didn't used to let me kiss his face, but I've worn him down, and he sheds so much, so I already have like all kinds of fur stuck to my face. I think I really grew as a writer, because up until last year, I had not completed any novel draft in like 4 years. 2023 was my best writing year ever. So, coming into 2024, I'm reluctant to lay down specific goals, and I don't really necessarily think I'm going to top 2023. I also want to maybe start a new creative hobby. So like I really want to learn how to sew and like actually get into like sewing and mending and repairing and just having fun with sewing and clothes. I really want to do that. I also told myself that I would learn how to do that thing where you knit a blanket by hand with that giant yarn. I really want to do that. And I said I would do that this winter. So I've got to get on these things. For context, Henry is here with me bread loafing. I have just learned to crochet in the last week, and I am watching the Of Monsters and Men documentary. Hi, Satu. Hi, Precious. She's so cute. Oh my gosh, look at that face. I'm really enjoying crocheting. I love it. I love being on my phone less, which is really the reason I picked it up, is because I wanted to have something to do like while watching TV. Also, if you're asking if I've written anything lately, the answer is no, because I started this new job and all my brain power has been going towards that. I just want to document that I'm in my happy place, on my mom's couch, visiting, crocheting, and watching Grimm. Greetings, it's Sunday, I think it's February 11th. So the last couple of days I've kind of gotten the inkling that I want to potentially take the plot of my Dark Storm Cloud, my Project Whisper series, and sort of rejig it to fit back into the original Storm Cloud series as like a book 2 or a book 3. Parts of it already were in the past. Project Whisper would still exist sort of on its own, but I would take a couple of the plot elements back into Storm Clouds. I was starting to feel like Project Whisper was sort of two novels happening in one, but not in a way that was cohesive, just in a way that was sort of overcrowded. And there were a lot of plot elements that even then I still had to leave out because they just really didn't fit. So I think that the elements that I'm taking away from Project Whisper and putting back into Stormcloud, that leaves room in Project Whisper now to take on some of those elements that maybe I had to get rid of in the past. I know I've also talked about potentially making Stormcloud a standalone, but after rereading the story in December, there's still a lot of things that are sort of open-ended, but I do think that Race's story largely does come full circle and there's closure there. The world plot now, that's the part that there are still threads left open, but that's kind of fine with me because I was planning to do other books in this series, but they weren't going to be dependent on Race as the driving force necessarily. This is really the first time I picked up my novel. One, working a 9-to-5 type of job, which takes up a lot of energy and time, obviously. And two, starting crochet. It's like all of my free time now, I just want to crochet instead of writing and stuff. And I'm watching Grimm while I crochet or watching TV while I crochet. So I just like, when do I write? Sad too. This is the back, and this is the front of what is going to be a sweater. This blanket, I made it. Just know that I'm having a great time, indulging another creative pursuit, filling my life with art, having something else to do with my hands besides scrolling on the internet. Good morning, it's Thursday, February 29th, happy leap day, and I have woken up like literally in the last half hour or so, and what I've been doing the last couple of weeks is that before I even get out of bed, I pick up my crochet stuff and I watch something on TV, and it's really been a great way to start my day. Greetings, it's March 3rd. Yes, it's Sunday, and I have not written really since December. I want to start incorporating writing back into my schedule. Greetings, I'm walking to the library right now. There's a creative writing group. I'm planning to work on Stormcloud. I decided to add a chapter 3, like insert a new chapter for chapter 3, just to give the story some space, because I've kind of been feeling like a lot happens in the story very quickly. Like from the beginning, there's a lot of information and new things that the reader is learning. I mean, it's kind of a fantasy world, so there's a lot for the reader to learn. And I think having a new chapter 3 will help the reader to absorb some of that information and also give new applications of how the world works. I just came across this weird plant. It stinks. I can smell a funk in the air. It's all over. Apparently that's skunk cabbage, which absolutely explains the smell. And right now I am traipsing over mud, trying not to splash myself. But there's so much skunk cabbage, like look at that. What is inside that? While I have you here, I just wanted to talk about my goals for the day. It's Saturday, March 9th. I was crocheting this morning. Now I'm going for a walk, trying to get 10,000 steps, more fresh air. And I'm thinking later today, once I leave here, go home, eat lunch, take a shower, go to a cafe. So I know I told you I was going to add in a chapter 3 to my story. I'm thinking, and I'm saying this so don't hold me to it, if I should just think about all the different plots I have in the story. Like, is there too much going on? I don't know. Everything is connected. Everything needs to be there to help other things be developed. But I'm wondering if there's something that I can take out, maybe saving it for another book and just making more room for what's already there. I know that sounds like the right answer in theory, but in practice that involves killing darlings that have already lived a full life. OMG, look at this beautiful moss. Just like a blanket of moss. Don't you just want to drape yourself over it? It's gorgeous. Hi again. One thing that I want to say is that now that I have a full-time job, I was worried about going from living a life of leisure on the gap year to having a full-time job and how that would affect my time and how I spend it and how I feel about it. Knock on wood. Since I've started my job, my weekends have actually felt really long, and I don't know if it's because I've just been making my weekends worthwhile by having things planned. In general, I feel like I've been using my time to my advantage so that it feels like at the end of my weekend I look back and I'm like, Friday feels so far away, like it happened so long ago. So that's really good, and I'm trying to do that with my afternoons too once I get off work. Going and doing things that I've been looking forward to, like having things to look forward to when I get off of work. Hello, it is Sunday. It's March 10th or something like that. And I just spent the last 3 hours in a cafe and I did some writing for Storm Cloud. I was thinking as I was driving here, because it was about a half-hour drive, so I had time to think. I was thinking that I would try to write a synopsis for Storm Cloud, because when I did that for Hotel Story, and then when I got feedback on the synopsis, it gave me a very good idea of what kinds of things needed to shift in the story. It just gives you a good idea, like a good bird's eye view of what's going on in the story. So if anything needs to be brought out more, if anything needs to connect better with other things going on in the story, like that gives you get a good sense of that from writing a synopsis. I started trying to do that with Stormcloud, and I start writing a synopsis by taking my scene list and basically changing it from bullet points of scenes to paragraph form, but I didn't write a very detailed scene list, so I kind of shot myself in the foot with that. So then I thought, okay, well, I'll just start kind of skimming through the story and updating the scene list, but I kind of just got a little bit carried away with working on some of the smaller changes in the first couple of chapters. Like I left comments throughout of things that I wanted to change, and so I started working on those. So it wasn't like busy work and it wasn't unnecessary work. So I did accomplish something, but it wasn't what I set out to do necessarily. So when I had about an hour left, I was like, I should really try to work on what I came here for, like something bigger picture, or working on writing chapter 3, which I had started but hadn't really gotten much into. So I started I told you I went to that writing group at the library the other day. So the scene that I wrote there, I basically typed that up into the story manuscript and then started going from there, like just writing out the scene. So I don't know exactly how many words I wrote. I probably wrote a few hundred words at least. Hello, excuse the dark lighting on my face, but I just wanted to tell you that I went to the library after work today. I wrote for about an hour-ish. Part of that time did include some aimless scrolling on my phone, just for like no more than 5 minutes of the hour and a half. And then right at the end, right at the last minute, I was able to get some more words. I was able to push through to the part of the scene, almost to the part of the scene that I was intending to get to today. And then I had to go to the knitting group at the library. So I was already at the library. They have a knitting group that meets like once a month. I just found out about it yesterday. So I went today and I was crocheting. And it was just the most glorious experience. It was like 10 other women, one other person who was crocheting, but everyone else was knitting. And it was just like chatting and talking and everything. And it was just, it's exactly what I've always wanted. And by always, I mean in the last couple of months. It's exactly what I wanted from a knitting group. And they will see me next month. And I think I need to, I've been looking for writing groups and stuff, but it seems like knitting groups and stuff is a bit more prevalent than writing groups, at least that I've been able to find. So I had a lot of fun. I ran out of yarn right at the end. So I need to probably go to the yarn store tomorrow to replenish. But I'm so glad that I did that. I put myself out there. Hello, greetings from the woods. It's a new trail to me. I've never been down here before, and I realized that finding a new walking trail is like finding a new coffee shop to ride in. But I just wanted to mention something that I was thinking about yesterday during my writing session at the library. I was writing the scene about this thing that my characters are doing in chapter 3, and I realized that I just don't know enough about the thing that they're doing. And it just made me feel kind of disheartened and doubtful that like I'm never gonna, unless I experience this thing also, I'm never gonna really know what it's like to do it. And I feel like I'm gonna be missing out on some crucial details if I try to write this scene. So I did stop for a few minutes and felt pretty bad, pretty sorry for myself. But then I just kind of decided that, you know what, this is just essentially a first draft of this chapter. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I can fix it later. Those moments will always rear their ugly head, and it's just about, you can give yourself a beat, give yourself a minute to like think about it. But yeah, it's just about how you face those moments, Good morning. So my goal is to do Project Stormcloud Draft 14 for Camp NaNoWriMo. And I've been working on that a little bit throughout the month here and there. And this weekend I went to a cafe and I finished writing chapter 3, and I sort of connected it to chapter 4 a bit better. So I tweaked the beginning of chapter 4 so that it kind of all made sense. And now I have to go through the other bigger changes that I want to make in the story. Sometime in the last couple of days, I hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here. If you're subscribed, if you're not, you do you. That's all I can really say. Good morning. It is Friday, March 22nd, and it's 7 a.m. So I start work at 8. So I figured I'd take a few minutes before then to try to do some writing, because yesterday I had sort of renewed inspiration for an old idea. There's something that's unique about a couple of the characters in the story, and I'm thinking of changing it to that this other thing is what makes them unique instead of what currently makes them unique. And it would sort of require a minor overhaul of the world building, of some of the plot elements, and of these characters and how their uniqueness, let's say, affects the way that they move in the story. I'm just going to play with it. I'm not going to make any like hard and fast changes right now. Basically make a list of all the ways I could see the story changing because of this. And then once I've more or less completed that, then I can stand back and see if I really want to actually make this change. So I am trying to write a synopsis for Stormcloud. That's what I'm doing. just wanted to talk about Camp NaNoWriMo really quick. So I'm in a hotel room. My husband and I have gone away for the weekend. He's taking a shower, so you might be able to hear the water. I actually signed up for an agent one-on-one thing at the end of June, and I basically want to submit this. I have until like the end of May, middle of June to get my materials in, so I want to submit Stormcloud. And my plan for this Camp NaNoWriMo is that I'm going through my running list of changes. So as I was writing everything that I was like, I'm gonna have to go back and change this, or just ideas that I had to like strengthen the book in some way. But basically I have to do all of this, make my final changes, print out the manuscript, read and mark up the entire manuscript, implement all of the changes from marking up the manuscript, and write a query letter, write a synopsis, and polish my first 5,000 words. I have to do all of that in the next 2 months. So that's awfully ambitious. Obviously the first 5,000 words is the main goal, and then just making sure the plot is tight enough that I can write a synopsis that I'm proud of for the agent one-on-one. Also, this is our view from our room. The ocean. Hello up there. Long time no see. I'm in a new place. I'm in my new apartment, and we have a second bedroom, so naturally we turned it into an office, and I spend a lot of time in here writing and or working. And it's just about 8 o'clock in the morning. I have to start work soon, but I just wanted to tell you what I've been doing this morning. So I've been up since like 5 o'clock in the morning. Normally I don't get up till like 6:37, but this morning I just kind of like woke up awake, and I remember that Aurora's new album, What Happened to the Heart, was coming out today. So I got up and I listened to it as I wrote a summary for a query letter for Project Stormcloud, because I'm going to a conference very soon. I'm currently in the middle of line editing Stormcloud, except I've been currently in the middle of that since I think April. So like the middle of April. I was supposed to line edit the entire draft since then. It's been like a month and a half since then, but I only line edited through like chapter 3 or 4. And but it was because like a lot of things happened. Like my sister-in-law got married, so there was a wedding to attend to, and I was in the wedding party. We moved. We were searching for an apartment, and then we moved. And moving has happened in phases because we were moving out of our in-laws' house. There was just a lot of mental stress going on because so many things were happening at once. Like I had a friend come to visit. It was a lot of like really good things, but there were a lot of like big things or time-consuming things or energy-consuming things. And then allergies were happening. My allergies got really bad. I actually had an ocular migraine, and I don't suffer from migraines, but it was just because both my stress levels were so high and my allergies were so bad at the same time that my body was like, you need to chill. Because of all that happened over the last month and a half, it's been very difficult to focus on writing. And in fact, only once we were like really settled in here did I like start to like write, because I was like, we're in a new place. I want to start to establish some good habits. So I want to set up like not necessarily a regular writing schedule, but just to establish a habit of feeling creative and like I can write while we're here. So a lot of mornings before work I've been getting up to write. I actually came up with a brand new story idea. So I think I'll talk about that later. But for right now, I basically spent this morning, so the last 2.5 to 3 hours, working on a summary for this story, because in my line edit drafts, in my notes and stuff, there's a few things that I want to change about the plot. Not necessarily, well, not really changing the plot, but like bringing certain elements more forward in the story and just kind of trying to make things a bit more seamless so they flow a bit more throughout the story. And so I've had to like consider that in writing my synopsis and my summary. Not my synopsis. I haven't written a synopsis yet. I started to, but it proved very overwhelming, so that's something that I have to do soon. I actually have to get all the materials prepared and submitted by, I think it's next Friday. It's the 14th of June. So I've got about a week. So I'm very relieved to have cranked out a summary that I actually really like. So now I just have to finish writing the query letter, which really means tightening up the summary because it might be a bit on the longer side. So tightening up the sentences, but also write a bio paragraph for myself. But I don't think that'll be too difficult. And then I have to work on the synopsis, and that will be difficult because, again, some of the plot has changed a little bit, and I haven't actually made those changes yet, so I don't know how they're going to necessarily play out in the whole story. So it might be tricky writing a synopsis, which a synopsis is basically a page to a page and a half in this case of spoilery, here's what happens in my story, start to end. Obviously, you can't include everything that happens in the story because you only have a page or a page and a half, so you have to be very succinct with which plot elements you choose to mention. And that was one of the things that the last time I went to this conference for Hotel Story, that was one of the major things that the agents were saying about my story, was that basically my synopsis and my query letter were sort of covering too much of the story. And so I needed to focus them a lot more. And so that's a lesson that I'm going to carry into writing the synopsis for this story. I'm going to a writing conference at the end of this month, and this Friday is the deadline to submit my materials for the agent one-to-one. One of the requirements is that you can submit the first 5,000 words of your novel, which is very generous, which I'm very grateful for. But ideally, the scenes that I want to submit that I think would really set the novel on its best foot forward is the first 8,000 words, which I know is like, if it takes 8,000 words to convince somebody to read my novel, then that is sort of a red flag there that something needs to be tightened up or cut. And so I'm thinking maybe the very first scene where my main character helps out one of her neighbors. But I was thinking, like, even though it does introduce the main character, it's showing the protagonist in her natural environment. That's what I'm trying to say. And then at the end of the scene, you find out something that the neighbor knows. And it comes up again later at the end of chapter 2, and that's really the more important scene with this neighbor. So I'm wondering if I can just get rid of this first scene. But if I get rid of that first scene, that's 1,700 words, which still leaves us with like 6,000-ish words. And I could then potentially cut 1,000 of those. That's a lot to cut in like line editing or something, just to tighten up the text. So maybe what I need to do is, instead of just cutting it, I'm going to copy the whole thing, the first 8,000 words, into a new document, just to play with it in a different playground where I'm not afraid to remove things. That might be tomorrow's plan. What I need to do before I even do that, though, is like finish incorporating my line edits. I've got a binder here with my entire novel printed out. This novel is so long. It's 140,000 words almost. Okay, I'm basically only line editing what I plan to submit for this conference, which is unfortunate because in my query letter, I can't really say what the entire manuscript's word count is. The novel is not really ready to submit to an agent, but because I'm going to the writing conference, these agent one-to-ones were included in the ticket. Here's the thing. The whole point of me submitting to this agent is not because I'm expecting representation. It's because I get to sit with them for 10 minutes and they get to give me feedback on my story. And one of them is a book doctor, not even an agent. So basically the whole point of meeting with her is for her to just basically diagnose issues in your book. So I might as well be honest and say what the word count is, because they might be able to help me pinpoint some areas that I can cut. Thank you for letting me talk that out. My brain was sort of, Hello. I recently line edited the first 2 chapters, as well as wrote a synopsis and a query letter for a writing conference that I'm going to in a week. And so now I just decided to continue line editing. I'm now at chapter 7. There are 41 chapters total. Like I said, I've got my project Storm Cloud printed out here. What I did when I printed it out is that I made every scene start on a new page, so that if I wanted to like move scenes around just to kind of play with it, I could like physically pick up the pages and move them over here and see how they are. That being said, We have Times New Roman 12-point font, double spaced. How many pages do we have? Gosh, I can't even get to this. Okay, 523 pages. When I've reflected on my plot, I've only found so far that there are things that I need to add. I have not yet seen any major things that need to be taken away. Yesterday I had the day off because of the holiday Juneteenth, and I decided to spend that day going to cafes. So cafe hopping. I went to 2 cafes during the day. I did try to go to a third, but when I got there, there was not a single table open. One of the fundamental ways that I've grown as a writer in a positive way is that, so writing is all ups and downs, okay? It's going from the highest highs of like feeling like you're the greatest writer in the world, that your story is the greatest story in the world, and that it's just so good and you're so proud of yourself and you're so fulfilled from the craft of writing and you feel just so nourished by it. It's going from those highs to the lows of like, oh, this story sucks. I'm never going to be able to like see this story through, or I'm never going to be able to like do the characters justice, or like just feeling like the lowest, like the pits, just feeling absolutely horrible about your story. And it affects you, like it really just affects you. And so anyway, I realized yesterday as I was driving to the first cafe, the highs for me in writing continue to be highs. However, the lows for me are not as low as they used to be. I think the main reason for that is because I know now, and I have learned now, and I have worked with myself for years to understand, to get it through my head that the lows will pass. You know, we all go through stuff in our life that is difficult, and it's hard when you're in those moments to have the perspective that you're going to get through it, that the lows will pass, that something better is waiting for you on this other side. You know, like when you're at rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up, that kind of thing. But that's something that I realized, I finally understand that and believe that when it comes to writing, is that when I feel those moments of doubt, those moments of what feels like laziness or being overwhelmed, or just when you're really just struggling with the craft or with the act of writing, I know now that the lows will pass. And I know that in those moments, when I'm feeling them, I'm like, well, I don't feel great about this right now, but I know that it's temporary. So until then, what can I do to either mitigate this, or like what can I do to just feel better, you know? So it could be anything from taking a step back. Maybe you're gonna go do something else, engage in another creative pursuit, go watch some TV and turn your brain off for a bit, go for a walk, maybe to work out an issue, or just to stretch your legs, get some fresh air, get some exercise. You talk to somebody whose opinion you value and who wants the best for you. Like you can read a book, get some ideas. There's a number of different ways you can deal with it. So maybe it's stepping away in that regard. Another thing you can do is to figure out why it is that you're feeling that way. If you're feeling that way because maybe you just don't understand, maybe the plot is just not working for you and you can't figure it out. It's like, well, okay, take a step back. Maybe you made a wrong turn in the plot a couple chapters back, and it's about now maybe your character made one decision at that point that they maybe should have gone and made a different decision. Or maybe you introduced one character where you should have introduced a different character. Or, you know, you had your character go to this place when they should have gone to that place. You know, it could be anything like that. Maybe you just made a wrong turn somewhere and it led you to what feels like a dead end. Because now it's like you're in a maze, right? You need, okay, this is a dead end. Let me turn around and figure out what the other options are, the alternate paths I can take. I'm writing again.